Hey guys, it's Jacob Sage here, and I'm coming at you with another video, and this is something a little different than what I usually post, which is, like covers, fucking gear reviews and all that. This is a strings 101 video, you know, for more extended range guitars, lower tunings and all that. I know, guys like Andrew Bain and all that have done videos like this, and there's plenty of videos out there that you can probably find, but I just there's these groups I'm in, the 7-string guitar groups and extended range guitars and all that. There just seems to be this wide variety of people that they don't know what to do. I guess when they get an extended range guitar, they get their first 7-string or something like that. They don't know what string gauge they want and all that. And before I start getting into all this, the main thing is that it's all about preference, so it's all going to depend if you like your strings tighter, if you like your strings floppy. I mean, it's taste and all that. But let me give you guys my recommendations on what I would suggest for these lower tunings. And we're going to only be sticking to drop A and lower, because drop B, I mean, there's been plenty of those, and figuring out a good string gauge for that set is pretty easy. So let's start with drop A. So with drop A, I highly recommend, if you're on, say, like a Fender scale guitar, which is like a 25 and a half inch scale, or if you're on like a Gibson scale, like a 24 and 3/4 inch scale, something like that, then I suggest the Mammoth Slinky set from Ernie Ball, mostly because you're going to have a super heavy gauge string on the high side, which is a 13, and then you're going to have a super low and heavy gauge side on the fucking bass side, which is going to be your low A, and that is about a gauge 62. And this is going to be more for guitars that are around the 25 and a half inch scale size. So something like right here, my Schecter. On this, I like my strings just a little bit heavier, so I suggest for this a 13 to 62, or if you like your strings, that's for stuff that's like maybe looser, but if you like your strings a little bit tighter, do like a 74 or a 72, which is what I have. Ernie Ball makes a baritone set, which is pretty damn good for these kind of tunings. I wouldn't recommend going any lower, at least with the Mammoth Slinky set. I wouldn't recommend going any lower than A, because once you start getting to G, it starts sounding flubby, and it doesn't sound that good. But if you're going to G, this set would work really well. All I did for this is I took so I took the highest string. I took an 8-string set. I took the highest string out, so the high E's gone. Fuck that string. The 7th string, gone. Fuck that string too. We take the 8th string and the all the way down, it's 6, 5, 4, 2. Yeah, so high E string and the low B 7th string we take out. So that way, because the way that these kind of tunings are tuned is that you're still in standard tuning right here. You still got E, B, A, stuff like that. So, with a 52 and at E, it's gonna feel, natural. Even a 46 can work. 42. This depends on your comfort level and what you like. The 72 is going to offer good sustain. It's going to offer good tuning stability. I guess it really doesn't matter with your action and all that, but it's also not going to be as flabby and all that, so it's going to feel relatively better. I would also recommend this set for drop G, but it is also pushing it just a little bit. I have been able to pull this string set off in G sharp standard, but drop F sharp is also a little tricky for stuff like that. For like G sharp standard, I recommend bumping your scale up to something like this, which is a Jackson JS327. This has a 26 and a half inch scale, and for this I use that same string set that I told you guys about, but the only thing that I change in this is I don't use the low 7th string, so instead I do it's like a 10 to 52, I think, something like that, around there, and then I use the low 74 for drop F sharp and G sharp standard, but this is also on a slightly longer scale guitar. So you can pull it off on a 25 and a half inch scale. You're just going to probably need to bump that gauge up a little bit, because an 80 feels really nice in G sharp standard and for drop G. and it also feels really nice for drop F sharp, but I don't recommend doing that on a 25.5 inch scale. That's just me, but you know, it's really gonna depend on your guitar too, because you know, if you can make it work, you can make it work. I will say that now, you can make that work. It's just you know, you're gonna have to adjust your intonation and all that. You're gonna have to do some adjustments. Take it to a tech or something if you're not comfortable doing that on your own. You're gonna have to do truss rod adjustments, all that. So it's gonna be a lot of work, but you can make it work. That's the best way I can say for that. For say lower, like drop F, I would still use the 80, especially if you're on maybe like an 82 or an 85 if you're on a 25.5 inch scale, because for everything else, it really doesn't matter, because standard sets, I mean, you can mix and match sets. I don't recommend going any bigger than a 52 if you're going to stay to drop A for standard, because it's just going to get too tight. Unless you really, really like high tension, then that's a little different. If you're on a Gibson scale, I definitely recommend a 74 for drop A. But for anything lower than like drop F and all that, I highly suggest getting a longer scale guitar, or even a multi-scale, which is what I have with this. Is my LTD. I don't know the model number off the top of my head. I'm sure it's like right here or something. It's not. We'll just pretend I didn't even mention that. But for this, I use a set of 9 to 80. And this is in drop E flat, but this set can work just fine in drop E, F sharp standard. If you want to tune up to like even just a drop F on an 8 string, because you can do that. But I do recommend that if you're going to do something like that, you absolutely, in my opinion, need a multi-scale instrument, because this it's a 25.5 inch scale to a 27 inch scale, so it's going to feel much tighter on that low end, but it's going to also feel much looser on the high end, because you have that short scale, and you can use a 9 string, something like that. So not like an actual 9 string guitar, but like a .009 gauge string for your high E, so it's going to feel generally a little bit better, in my opinion. If you want to go any lower than E flat, then I suggest getting into more extreme gauges, which is more something like this, which is what I have. It is a 105. You can get away with using like a 90 for drop D on an 8 string, which is drop D0 or drop D1, something like that. There's a specific term, but double drop D, we'll just go with that because that's the most popular thing. So I recommend for like double drop D, if you're on a 27 inch scale, do like a 92 or like a 90 or something like that. You can get away with it with an 80, but it's going to feel a little floppy. I don't mind it all too much. It's, like I said, it's all preference, so it's all going to depend on what you like. But if you're going any lower than that, so say double drop C or double drop C sharp, then I would definitely recommend, if it's on something like this, a 27 inch scale, I recommend the 105 for that. And if you're going any lower than that, probably going to want to bump up the scale, because 9 strings stock, depending on who you're getting it from, like Ibanez have 9 strings that come in, I think it's like 28 inch scales, and those usually come stock with like a 9 to 90, 92, which, I mean, it feels alright for a 28 inch scale, but you're still going to want a thicker string. But it's like I said a couple times now, it's all about your preference, and it all depends on what you like, and if you like your strings tighter, if you like your strings looser. So, but if you're going to something like double drop B to double drop A on a, say, 28 to a 29 inch scale 8 string or a 9 string, I suggest at least a .110 or a .120. If you're going any lower than that to something like a 10 string, which usually comes in a 30 inch scale, you're going to want like a 145. And that's getting extremely big and extremely low. I don't recommend 10 strings, but, you know, to each his own. You know, if you like those super low notes, then that's on you, you know. But personally, that's just my recommendation. I recommend just experimenting with strings, because I see these people, they ask, you know, what string gauge should I use? And I'm always just like, well, don't ask people, just experiment, you know. Try things out. I mean, because strings really aren't that expensive. I mean, if you're just buying single strings and that's all you want is like a single string to try, I mean, you can buy like, I don't know, like a 74 from Ernie Ball for like $2, 2, 3, $5, depending on the shipping, I guess, and depending on what string you're getting. Because if you're getting like an NYXL, that's probably going to cost you a little bit more, because obviously it's Diodario NYXLs, and that's about all I use on my guitars now. I'm not sponsored by anything, by the way. I don't think I would be, because I only have like almost 200 subscribers, so oh well. But essentially, yeah, it's all about your feel. Just try strings out. Try mismatching. I don't know, if you're on like a 7-string, your starter Jacksons or Ibanez's, take like the standard, I think it's like 10 to 52 set that you usually get from them. The super slinky sets from Ernie Ball, especially if you're only going to A, slap like a 62 on there. See how it feels. You know, if you don't like the tighter tension and all that, then try to get a little bit of a lower gauge. You can also try Callium too, because they go by your scale, and they have certain lengths too, because that's also a factor too. Because if you're on, say, what is it? It's the Squier Stagemaster, not Stagemaster, the Squier Jazzmaster Baritone, which is a 30-inch scale. You're gonna want to get something more around like bass strings, in my opinion, because of the fact that the scale is so long that you're gonna run out of space, and that taper is gonna be really short. I've seen it a couple times. Andrew Baina has fallen victim to this. He says it never bothers him, but it bothers the fuck out of me. So, and anybody else who's, looks at the string and is like, the taper is this fucking far from the nut. So, that's one thing to consider with your scale length, is your strings and how long they are. So, I recommend, if you have like a 30-inch scale, get bass strings. This isn't, I guess it is a bass string, but it's also a guitar string. It's a 9-string set, so that's one other thing. But other than that, just test things out. Do what you can, is the best I can say for this. And I know this isn't like a fucking super like in-depth video or anything like that, like how Fluff has done with his string gauges, or Rob Scallon, but it's just like, these are my opinions on what you should be doing, because it's like I've said now a million times, it's all about preference. It all depends on your feel, what you like, if you like your strings loose, if you like them tight, and it also depends on what you're playing too. Because if you're playing like leads, then you're going to want something that's a little bit looser, unless you're like Stevie Ray Vaughan tight and you're using 13s and E flat standard, which is fucking ridiculous in my opinion. Or Lee Melia from Bring Me the Horizon, he uses an 80 for drop B, which is also insane. You can make it work and all that, but like I said, preference. So, yeah, that's all I have to say for now. I'll try to do some more covers here eventually. I don't know what they're going to be. I'll just fucking get inspired to play a song or something like that. I might be releasing some original music here soon, too. So, yeah. Hope you guys have a good day. I will talk to you later.